Welcome back. Good morning, and this is Daybreak on this 13th day of July 2021. I want to introduce the panel already here in studio. Senator Moses Kajwang from Homa Bay. He's been gone for a long time. Where were you?
I've been around. I've just come back from my county. Yesterday I was at the Teaching and Referral Hospital, checking our readiness for the anticipated fourth wave of COVID, and things are worrying out there in the counties.
Oh, is it?
People are taking it for granted. And you see, experts have predicted that the fourth wave will be bigger. It will be more devastating. And the last three predictions by experts, especially those that have been engaged by the Lake Region Economic Bloc, led by a very eminent doctor called Dr. Kamarogo, the predictions have come true. So we are very worried that towards the end of July, we might have an upsurge in cases. And yet we are not prepared to deal with it, and yet we don't have vaccines. I think the other bigger thing is like Chris and I, who come from the Western region, we've been locked down, and a lockdown should be enforced for something to happen like vaccinations.
All right, Senator. So, we'll get to that because I'm not even done with the introductions. So let me introduce Senator Sylvia Kasanga. Karibu sana, welcome back.
Asante Sam.
And
Thank you so much.
Dr. Chris Omala from Community Constituency, thank you both for making time for us. And of course, he started off by talking about the COVID-19 situation. We've been seeing a slump in the number of new infections, but of course you hear him say that there are still concerns on the ground. Senator Kasanga, because now he went ahead to mention it, and I know once upon a time you chaired an ad hoc committee. You may not now be chairing that committee, but when you move around this country, did we learn anything from the initial wave of this pandemic in as far as preparedness and dealing with it now?
Well, thank you, Sam. Yes, our committee has now been defunct for this year, actually the whole of this year. So we finished our work in December, so I can't say I'm really fully abreast with the situation in the country as a whole. I can only speak about my region, just the same way Senator Kajwang is speaking about his own region. But you can see really Kenyans in the village are very relaxed. In fact, there are no masks. Every time I drive down to my county, our marketplaces, there is no one wearing a mask, you know. There's no social distancing. It's like it doesn't even exist when you speak of it when you're in the counties. And that is definitely worrying. And in fact, I remember when we were preparing for the president's visit to Kambani, that was a very key concern. And that is why the president had to reschedule so that we can replan how he's going to come, because we didn't want a situation where we have masses coming together for fear of this wave of COVID. And that's why we ended up doing those closed, the president ended up inspecting the projects in closed, you know, in a closed sort of setup, so that we can manage the crowds from coming together. Indeed, we have an issue. I know some counties have really tried to upscale on their capacity, but I think we are still not there. And the fact that, like Senator Kajwang is saying, the vaccines are coming in very slowly. I think we only have another batch of a few vaccines that have come that will probably cover not even 200,000, you know, citizens. We are not doing very well. And you see, globally, also we've been marked. I read in the paper yesterday that 54 countries have, you know, blacklisted Kenyan passport holders from traveling. A lot of Europe and some other countries. And you see, this is now how we get left behind globally. So then comes the issue of why are we not prioritizing, you know, the vaccination of the population.
Of course, the president has spoken about this and said that by, is it June next year, he expects that the country will have vaccinated about 10 million Kenyans, majorly adults. We hope that that can succeed. Dr. Chris Omala, do you have any concerns about Trans Nzoia and specifically your county? Are people adhering to the, excuse me, to the measures, and how are they able to especially access the second dose of the vaccines?
Yes, of course, I'm very, very concerned. As you're aware, Trans Nzoia is one of the counties that is a lockdown, partial lockdown. And I was home. Actually, we were issuing the CDF checks to the public.
Dr. Chris Omala, I'm told that we have a challenge with your microphone. We'll try to correct it. But Senator Kajwang, so first, we've been at this since March last year. So the counties have been having time to prepare for containment of different waves. There's that time that the Lake Basin region was said that it's now becoming a hotspot. So there are things that need to be done. What is stopping the administrations or the government in Homa Bay to improve the facilities to contain this pandemic in a better way?
We have seen even from other countries that the ultimate solution is vaccination. Issues of containment, issues of even social distancing, issues of even facilities in hospitals, we have seen in other countries that no single country has ever been adequately prepared to take care of their patients in ICU and HDU and those other advanced facilities. And the solution that the United States took, that the United Kingdom took, Israel, and many European countries. And the reason why we've seen a Euro festival going on with fans in stadiums is because of vaccinations.
Right.
The problem that county governments have is that the issue of vaccines has been centralized, and the national government is the only one that can do the procurement, and the national government is doing the administration of the vaccines. I think it is important for the county and national governments to sit together and agree on priority areas for vaccine rollout, especially the regions that have been locked down. If we are going to get the 10 million vaccines that the president talked about, we need to see those areas that have got higher prevalence rates being prioritized, and we need to see aggressive drives to tell our people that the vaccines are safe.
Okay.
For now, Sam, it's really, it has gone beyond ICU beds, and it has gone beyond masks and washing hands and checking of temperatures.
Right, yeah.
Ultimately, vaccines is a solution to this problem.
And Dr. Chris Omala, you look at a country like the UK, they are saying that on July 19th, they'll enter the final phase of relaxing the COVID-19 measures, including it will not be necessary to keep your distance, the masks will not be mandatory. Do you see ourselves getting to that, especially at a time that we're approaching the election year where there'll be a lot of mingling and movement? Do you see ourselves in that safety space?
I don't see us reaching there very soon. You know, UK had a lockdown, and that particular time when there was a lockdown, there was some serious campaign in terms of vaccinations. They had a very clear program. They started with the healthcare providers. That was in the first phase. In the second phase, they went through the age groups that are vulnerable, the 58 years and above. And it's been very, very massive. So really, UK has a right now to remove all those measures just because we've had a comprehensive vaccination program, as opposed to here in Kenya. And particularly for counties, you know, you had asked me an earlier question about pertaining to Trans Nzoia. Trans Nzoia, for instance, the curfew going up to 7 p.m., it is really difficult for the residents. And we are calling upon the government to review those lockdown hours, maybe to extend from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Again, the churches have been closed.
Sorry,
we request the churches
you mean from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.?
At least 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Okay. You know, many people have gone to work, and that's the time they're rushing to go home. And I'm calling upon the police officers, because we've had a very bad incident in the community where the police officers are running towards the public, beating them up and arresting them. At a time like 7, if somebody has alighted from the stage and is rushing home, a police officer has no right to board a border and follow that particular person up to the homestead. He's beaten up and he's being locked up. That is something that we really want to condemn. They must put up a human face, because Kenyans have to go and work for their livelihoods, and that's the time they're getting back home. Okay. So it is something that my people have actually complained, and I'm calling upon the police to have that human face at that time. And again, the churches, we are calling upon the Interfaith Council. It doesn't make sense. Bars are opened, but churches, place of worship is closed. So we are calling upon the Interfaith Council to relax, because when you go to church, they are putting on masks, and there's also social distance. And there's no evidence that has been shown that this spread is through churches. So we are calling upon the Interfaith Council, the government, to open up churches in those lockdown areas. Okay,
all right. I want us to make progress and talk about the story that is making headlines on the two dailies. On the front page of the Standard, CJ Koome fires warning shot. It appears the honeymoon is over as Chief Justice puts both houses of Parliament on notice in a letter detailing multiple and overlapping summonses to judicial staff that she says borders on harassment and disrespect for constitutional boundaries, holds appearances until matter is resolved. The story continues on page 8. Then on page 7 of the Daily Nation, CJ Koome clashes with lawmakers on an Amadi PSC summons. It's a battle for supremacy that has erupted between Parliament and the judiciary after CJ Koome questioned lawmakers' oversight of the courts and the Judicial Service Commission. And of course, the latest in his files, a letter written to the PSC after the Public Accounts Committee, led by one Opiyo Wandayi, wrote to the judiciary on how they need to explain about irregular staffing policies being the claim there. So let me begin with you, Senator Kasanga. Just exactly what's going on between these two agencies at a time that once upon a time there was a divide between the two houses of parliament on what exactly was their role. There are those that felt about national institutions, it should be the National Assembly oversighting them and not the Senate. How do you take this letter from the CJ?
I am actually seeing this article this morning and I'm surprised. I don't know why summoning the judiciary should be an issue. The House of Parliament, both Senate and the National Assembly, are houses of oversight. And we can oversight, you know, they can oversight any part of national government or even the judiciary. And in fact, my one encounter with judiciary was during the ad hoc committee. In the initial stages of the ad hoc committee, we did summon the judiciary because of complaints of the lockdown of judiciary. And therefore, access to justice was an issue, as well as the overcrowding of the remands. And we actually summoned them and they came. And we had very good conversations. And we went ahead actually to push them to go online. That was part of the work of the ad hoc committee of Senate. So in as much as we are oversighting, there's also a lot of synergy between the two houses. And there's no reason why, in my opinion, there should be any conflict or any issue arising from a summon. I think it would be in order that each house does its own work, each house respects the boundaries and the duties and the roles of you know, each arm of government. So I don't see why this is happening. I've still not read the actual article to understand really what was the summon all about and why it should raise any issues.
Okay, just want to quote a bit of the letter that has been quoted by the Standard on page 8, and they are saying that the committee has again summoned the HR committee of the JSC to appear before it on July 12th, 2021 for a follow-up meeting, a discussion on the position of Director of Finance, a matter that is squarely the responsibility of the Judicial Service Commission. So they were just wondering, if you're to invite the HR committee of the Judicial Service Commission, yet you have a representative of the Judicial Service Commission who is the secretary, that is Chief Registrar Anna Madi, summoned to appear before PSC on 6th of July, then she feels that there could be some overlap. She also cited other summonses, including one on May 10th of 2021 by the Senate Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights. The committee had summoned the Chief Registrar to discuss the state of the judiciary and administration of justice annual reports for the financial year 2018-2019 and 2019-2020. And Senator Kajwang, do you think the CJ has a valid point to question why different offices would be invited to discuss matters that may appear to be almost related?
I think the CJ, with time, will realize that on this matter, she's taking the wrong direction. The power of Parliament to call for evidence is constitutional. It's not even statutory. Article 125, that says that either House of Parliament, that's Senate and National Assembly, and any of its committees has power to summon any person to appear before it for the purpose of giving evidence or providing information. In fact, the Constitution goes ahead and says that for the purposes of that provision, a House of Parliament and any of its committees has the same powers as the High Court. So this cannot be disputed. I would be worried if the Senate was inviting the judiciary to discuss the Public Accounts Committee reports, because that's a duty of the National Assembly. But the report, the State of the Judiciary and Administration of Justice Annual Report, is tabled in Parliament. It's tabled in both the National Assembly and the Senate. And so there cannot be anything wrong if the relevant committee of the Senate calls the judiciary to shed light on that report. And there is nothing wrong when the Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly calls the judiciary, because at the end of the day, the judiciary is funded from money that comes from the Consolidated Fund. At the end of the day, the National Assembly serves to represent the people of Kenya and serves to oversight all state officers, including the president, including the deputy, and including all state organs. If there is a problem in terms of schedule conflicts, I think that is a matter that can be dealt with administratively. But the spirit must remain that all state organs must subject themselves to parliament within reasonable bounds.
But is it possible for the different committees, especially if you're within the same house, to reconcile what they want to get from the judiciary and find ways of how they can probably jointly work together?
What other institutions have done is that they've appointed liaison officers. So if you get an invitation from the Senate and an invitation from the National Assembly, through the liaison officer, they have a conversation with the relevant committees or the clerks of both houses to ensure that you don't have conflicts in scheduling. And I think those are very, small administrative matters that I want to encourage the Chief Justice to put in place, because there is nothing that will stop any house from calling any person to provide evidence.
Right.
But we can improve the relationships by establishing liaison offices between the two arms of government.
I see a quote here attributed to Wandai, the chair of PSC, that he said they would not tolerate any attempts by state organs to shield their officers from answering questions on taxpayers' money. And the quote is, "It is our view that all state organs and agencies that are financed from the public coffers must be subjected to parliamentary scrutiny and oversight," according to Wandai. And what he's saying, he's saying is okay. I mean, it's what Parliament should be doing. But then again, when a CJ feels that there's a bit of harassment to her officers, what needs to happen barely 2 months since she got into office?
I agree with the Honorable P. Wandai. Maybe the Chief Justice is still new and is still undergoing some orientation. Where you spend public funds, the Auditor General must audit those funds. And what the Auditor General does, he looks at the compliance with the written law or the regulations. And if we look at the auditor reports, it shows that we have some officers in the judiciary who have been acting for 10 years. The responsibility of hiring and firing is with the JSC. That was an audit query. And when the Auditor General does the report, he takes the report to Parliament, particularly the National Assembly under the Committee of Public Accounts Committee, which is being chaired by Honorable Wandai. So what is supposed to be done is the respective officers have to appear before the PAC committee to address those issues, so that they can be dropped. And if they don't appear, their accounts will be qualified. When the accounts are qualified, that means they have an audit query that needs to be responded to. And under Article 125 of the Constitution, it's very clear that the House of Parliament or a committee of Parliament has the powers like the powers of the High Court, and they can summon anybody, even abroad, for purposes of evidence. So my humble request to CJ, and with due respect, I know she was nominated by JSC, and the President only appointed her subject to the approval by Parliament. So Parliament is exercising its role. The issue of the principle of separation of powers between the three arms of government, there's that element of overlapping. It's a small incident that maybe it can be worked out in a harmonious way, but it didn't call for this letter. And I'm calling upon her to allow her officers to appear before the Parliamentary Accounts Committee for the sake of resolving the issue of the audit query. Remember, Parliament...
But now with this standoff, how do you resolve it to move forward at a time that there's not the best of relations between the executive and the judiciary?
As my other colleague had mentioned, when you read Article 125, it is very clear there's nothing to resolve. The issue is they must appear before that committee. If you don't, the Committee of Parliament can actually summon you. So what Wandai will do, we write the first letter, and if it doesn't show up, she'll be summoned. And where you are summoned, you are forced to appear. It happened before. When I was in the committee of PIC, Amos Kimunya, he had refused to appear before PIC committee. And he was summoned. So under Article 125, and I'm calling upon the CJ to go read that article. They are better in terms of interpretation. So the chief registrar of the judiciary must appear before this committee. Remember, It is Parliament that allocates money.
Right.
It's Parliament that gives judiciary money. So it has a responsibility to examine the reports as represented by the Auditor General for purposes of clearance.
Just before we get out of this topic, you said that Parliament has power to summon anybody, including abroad. What do you mean?
Even somebody when he's abroad, when you read Article 125.
A Kenyan?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yeah, it has those powers under Article 125
I thought
of
you
the
meant
Constitution.
even a citizen of another country.
Not another country, a Kenyan.
Okay, all right.
By the way, even another country, they can go through the channels that are applicable for purposes of evidence.
Senator Kasanga, Koome didn't mince her words in the letter when she accused the lawmakers of turning the committees into avenues of attempting to micromanage and infringe on the independence of the judiciary. And this is one thing that the judiciary and the legal profession is very keen to protect. So at a time there is what now appears to be misunderstanding, because if the CJ feels there's harassment, but the members of Parliament yourselves feel that she has to present herself or her officers before Parliament for accountability, how then do you move forward so that you do not have relations like what has been between the executive and the judiciary?
I think this is where leadership now comes in. This is where leadership comes in, and leaders are called upon not to, flex their muscles too much, but to come on a round table and have a conversation on how they are going to engage. This is a good chance, I think, for CJ Koome to reach out, to the leaders in Parliament as well, and figure out how the two arms of government are going to relate going forward and during her tenure. It's a good opportunity for her because she's still new. And rather than, come out guns blazing, it would be more like, let us sit down and see how we can work this thing out together. And like Senator Kajwang is saying, those liaison officers, those administrative issues can be easily, resolved and sorted out, so that whatever channels of communication that are right now probably not quite right, then they can be cleaned up and streamlined for future engagement, because the two arms must engage. According to our constitution, they must engage as much as they are as independent as they should remain. So I think it's just a question of proactive leadership. And I've listened to the CJ speak many times, and I believe this is something that they can get over without necessarily having these battles that are coming now into our papers and creating a different perception than it needs to be. As you know, Sam, I'm usually very optimistic. So I believe these administrative issues are not a big challenge, and we shouldn't make them a big challenge. Just to encourage the CJ as she continues to settle down, she also reaches out to these other arms of government and figure out how then they're going to engage going forward. Because engaging they must.
Okay, all right. It's very interesting that you take that route, that you should not look at them as very big challenges. Your colleague sitting to your left is saying that they have to be compelled to appear according to Article 125 of the Constitution, that says that Parliament has the power to compel persons to appear before them. They have the same powers just as the High Court. But anyway, we move on to matters politics now, and what has been going on within the National Super Alliance. We've seen leaders speaking from different sides, not agreeing exactly on the future of the National Super Alliance, but also saying that there has been this frustration on availability of resources from the political fund. I want us to listen to some leaders that spoke over the weekend, somewhere in Ukambani, that may also signal what has been going on in that region. That is Governors Kibwana, Kalonzo Musyoka, Raila Odinga, who spoke during a tour of President Kenyatta in the region. Listen.
On a light note, Governor Mutua started as Wiper. He's actually a Wiper member. And Governor Kibwana is a chairman of Wiper. So ile alikwambia hakuna shida kidogo, hakuna shida, ni kulipa tu malipo ya chama. Ndugu yetu, hatuna ubinafsi.
Bwana Kalonzo amesema mambo yote ya siasa ndogo ndogo imeisha. Watu wake wale wengine wako huku chini walisema nipelekwe discipline ya Wiper, labda utamueleza hiyo sio nzuri.
Now Kalonzo says that Professor was a member of Wiper, but I just want to remind him that him, Charity, Professor, yourself, you're part of NASA. Sorry, not NASA, ODM.
Okay, they are talking about political parties, and I want to begin with you, Senator Kasanga, because look, quite interesting conversations about who is within Wiper, who is not, who is in ODM. And yes, you say, for instance, that the trip in to Kambani by the president was delayed because there were concerns about COVID-19, but there also the word that there had been some disagreements between the different leaders, some of them speaking in that clip. First of all, how united is your region to the extent that now it can have a conversation on how to, for your major political party to unite with others, whether it's within the National Super Alliance or One Kenya Alliance? All
right. There was definitely a lot of murmurs around the presidential visit. And I don't know why the murmurs were there or where they came from. I will attribute them maybe to a few individuals, a few individuals who have dissenting voices. But as far as we are concerned, having been the organizers, everyone was represented in Ukambani. In fact, we had a technical team that was drawn from the 3 governors, as well as members of parliament and senators and professionals that was put together so that they can liaise with government, you know, with the presidential delivery unit so that we can organize the visit of the president. So I don't know why there was those murmurs and dissenting voices trying to suggest that we are not united when it comes to how we are going to receive the president. I don't know where that came from. I can assure you we were all of us together. And as you saw in the touring of the projects, all the leaders were represented. The governors were represented. And of course, our party leader, His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka, you could see clearly was the host of the president in this particular visit of touring the national governments. So there's no issue, you know, other than just a few local internal issues which appear everywhere in every county where you have especially governors who are on their second term and they're on their way out and they're also trying to find their feet on what to do with themselves. You will always hear a thing or two here. But when it comes to the unity of Ukambani, there's no doubt who is our leader at the national level, without a doubt. Everyone is aware of that, and that's why you can hear those conversations of you belong to Wiper and, you know, things like that. It goes without saying that we are all together.
I find that interesting, Senator, because you have just one governor out of the 3 counties who is from Wiper, but himself, he has been having quite a dissenting voice, that is Governor Kibwana. How then would you say that you're still united behind one leader?
You know, he might not be maybe happy about a few things here and there as a governor, but that does not make him any, you know, it does not make him the leader of Ukambani, so to speak. Neither can you say Governor Mutua, because he leads Machakos, he's in Chap-Chap, he now becomes the leader of Ukambani. I can assure you it doesn't work that way. Even if they have their own, you know, political outfits, Charity Ngilu governor, and in fact the 3 governors have their own, you know, parties. Still the overarching party in Ukambani that has majority, you know, following is that of Wiper, without a doubt. The county assemblies are representative of that fact.
Okay. Dr. Chris Wamalwa, we have had this conversation for many shows now, but as matters stand, because the headlines yesterday said that 500 million shillings has been released for the political parties fund, and it's majorly going to ODM and Jubilee, and the affiliate parties within NASA have had issues, or the member parties of NASA have had issues on release of funds, especially from ODM. Do you still consider the possibility of working together with, for instance, ODM as a viable option come 2022, and what needs to happen before then?
In politics, you can even work with your enemies so long as you achieve your interests. And I can't rule out that we cannot work with ODM. ODM has been a partner with us under CODE and a partner with us under NASA, where I was privileged to have served in the management board. When it comes to the Political Parties Act, there's a provision for pre and post MOUs. We've had MOUs with ODM. Under CODE, we did very well. They were giving us the political parties fund, though they still have an arrears. Under NASA, we also have issues with them. Yes, they still have, they owe us some money. So we can't rule out not working.
Would you know how much?
Maybe with time I can get the tabulations and I can I'll let you know. But they still owe us some. They owe us some money, and part of our money they took, and I know they have bought a headquarter for ODM, part of the proceeds. And we also want, as Fort Kenya, want to buy our own headquarter. So Honorable Senator Kajwang here, I'm sure is listening, and his party leader is also listening. That in a coalition, it is about trust. We worked together as a team. We got what we got. And I've seen Prime Minister Raila Odinga on record saying that we are going to revive NASA. Of course, some 2-3 years ago, it's the same team of ODM which had announced the death of NASA. And today, they are announcing the resurrection of NASA. And having been a member of the management board, NASA had a term of 5 years. And NASA is coming to an end when it comes to end of 2021. In 2022, as we speak right now, we've started preparing to go into a new coalition of One Kenya Alliance, which is composed of Ford Kenya, Wiper, ANC, and KANU. So we're calling upon our ODM colleagues. The issues of reviving NASA is dead. We are not going to revive it because it's coming to an end. And when you look at the agreement as deposited at the Register of Political Parties, it says, when the 3 partners write to the registrar that they want to exit, then that's the death of NASA. And as we speak right now, Ford Kenya, Wiper, and ANC, they're doing letters to the Register of Political Parties that want to dissolve NASA. And come 2022, we are already in talks with other like-minded parties.
But why would you exit at such a time, yet you say at the end of 2021, you'll naturally be out of NASA?
No, we are doing that because, you know, we cannot be in 2 coalitions. So this one is coming to sunset, and we are preparing to start a new one.
Okay.
So we are doing the preparations so that we'll be able to deposit this document with the Register of Political Parties.
Do you know
so our colleagues ODM, they are free to join us, but to leave their bad manners aside so that we work together.
Okay, Senator, I hope you have enough brief. The question you raised about arrears, would you know how much money you are owed for this season of NASA between 2017 and now?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to do that. But if you give me time in our next show, I can get the tabulations. I can even go to the Register of Political Parties. Actually, what is supposed to be done, because I made an effort to talk to the Register of Political Parties, the money has to go to ODM. And because of that document, which we deposited at the Register of Political Parties, ODM are supposed to, for onward submission, to give us as per our share. And they used to do that, by the way, when they were, I don't know what happened on the way.
That's okay, Dr. Chris Omalwa. Senator Kajwang, first of all, there's an accusation that you used the political party's fund to acquire the new headquarters. What is the name? Chungwa House now. Is that factual? And secondly, why wouldn't you just release the money based on what he claims to be an understanding under NASA?
A proper reading of the Political Parties Act that establishes the Political Parties Fund makes those assertions very difficult to confirm. First of all, what are we talking about? The Political Parties Fund is 0.3% of national revenues. We are squabbling over 0.3%
That's a lot of
of
money.
national revenues. And these are people who want to run government, and they cannot agree on 0.3% of national revenues. There is an English expression of cutting the nose to spite the face. I mean, if I hear people are saying they're going to walk out of NASA because they did not get their perceived share of 0.3% of national revenues, I think that will be very juvenile. And that then would demonstrate that we are in politics not to better the lives of our people, but we're in politics to line the pockets of our political party outfits and the officials that are in there. I don't think that 0.3% of national revenues, of which Jubilee will take the lion's share because they have more numbers than National Assembly, that will leave just about 0.1% of national revenues to contend with. I think it is the wrong conversation. We in ODM are having a conversation with Jubilee to establish a pre-election pact. We are okay, by the way. If Ford Kenya wants to go it alone, we wish them well. And some, remember, in as much as we are saying that there have been bad manners in NASA, I can give you an illustration, even in the Senate. All members of the ANC party have held leadership positions in the Senate. Kaniri is in the commission. Petronila Were was our first deputy whip. Malala was our deputy minority leader. Even on the Wiper side, Mutula Kilonzo is still our whip. He's still whipping the minority side. And we still have confidence in him. We still have faith in him. And we have no intentions of removing him from that role. I think within Parliament, and particularly within Senate, we've got an understanding that the ideals that NASA stood for, the social justice and all those issues we talked about, remember NASA, we were saying to NASA Wezi, to NASA the people who are messing up the economy. In 2022, a rose by any other name is still a rose. We will go into a coalition. It might not be called NASA. It might even be called Mukate coalition. It can even be called Oka coalition that they are fronting. But we are going to go into a coalition. If NASA, if we left CORD. CORD was a very powerful coalition. And it stood for something, Coalition for Reforms and Democracy. Then we went to NASA how? We shall come up with another coalition. But the important thing is that the objective of that coalition must be to rescue Kenyans from the economic hardships they face and to ensure that this country does not fall into the hands of kleptomaniacs and people with shady histories when it comes to economic matters, people with shady histories when it comes to issues of genocide and division of communities.
Sam, you have to give us...
Those are very heavy words. I need us to take a short break. Please keep note down what you wanted to respond about so that we can continue this conversation after the break. Tweet us at Citizen TV Kenya. Text us via 22422. The hashtag to use on Twitter is DAYBREAK. You're back shortly.